Alright guys, so today I just want to go over how I packed my ruck when I was on the teams and when I was going through selection, ranger school, anytime I was doing any field training. This is a very down and dirty of how I would pack my ruck in order to do that. So two things is that there's packing your ruck for training, meaning you're doing a ruck march, and then there's packing your ruck to be in the field for multiple days. So the first way we're going to talk about is just the training aspect of getting your ruck ready. So the biggest thing is that you want to make that rucksack as even as possible, meaning you don't want to have all of your weight on the right side to when you're rucking this thing, you're canted to one side. That's going to cause issues in the body mechanics. So my advice is, and the way that I would do it is, depending on what your major weight source is, let's say a sandbag, I would use my plate carrier a lot. Really, that plate carrier and that big weight source is going to be the majority of your weight. So the typical rucksack for training is 45 pounds dry, and what that means is the weight of your rucksack prior to adding all of your water sources and anything like that. So everything dry weight, you want that thing to weigh a minimum of like 45 pounds when you're getting ready for any sort of military training, because that is the standard weight that you're usually going to be taking these tests in. So really the big thing for training ruck and putting weight in is you want to have a bunch of filler space in order to make that rucksack nice and wide, and then you want to have your weight source at the top of your ruck, so that way the majority of the weight is up riding on the top of your shoulders. You don't want it to be down here, because all it's going to do is just make your back arch. So you want to have it nice, high and tight on your shoulders and back. So we're going to go walk through my ruck. I know that this is not the standard issue ruck that you get in the military, so I'm going to do my best to make sure that I can relate this kind of stuff. But my rucksack has a pouch at the very bottom. This is the top. This is a Tack Taylor Malice pack. So this is the top. Here's my back straps. I have them nice, high and tight. And then based on if you have a rucksack that the military gives you, you have these brackets on the side that you can move this pack up and down. You want it to be as high on your back as possible. So this is my ruck. Got the waist belt, shoulder straps, back pad, and then got my opening up here, a bunch of pockets and things like that you can put stuff in, and then my main pouch right here. And then I have for my sleep system on the bottom of the ruck for me to put my sleep system in there. But for this demonstration, you guys usually probably won't have that, so we're just going to close this thing up. But for me, when I would go out to the field, I would put my sleep system in here in the bottom. So, like I said, as for training wise, all you're really doing is filling that space in your rucksack. So for this example, we're just going to use some sleep sacks. And since it's training, I'm not worried about anything else other than just making this pack nice and even. Those don't weigh very much. We're just trying to fill this rucksack up to where it's got some dimension to it, nice and even. Then we can zip that up, or let's say that this bag right here is my plate carrier, and let's say it weighs 30 pounds. Put that on top, and then let's say I have a sandbag. This will be my sandbag, and that weighs 15 pounds. So then I could put this at the top here, use my flap to close it up, cinch this thing down, cinch the other strap down, pull the weight from the bottom up. So now my weight is, I got filler at the bottom, and then all my weight is at the top here. So then when I go to put this thing on, Loosen up your straps. You want to give yourself enough room in there. Throw this on. Then I like to hump it up as high as I possibly can so it's off just my lower back. Get up here, and then I want to cinch my straps down. So that weight, you can do this seesaw motion, that weight is up on my shoulders. It's not carrying me back like this, it's up on my shoulders, so that way when I'm running and when I'm walking, it's nice, high and tight. If you need a little extra support, you can use the waist belt and cinch that down. That way it's really nice, high and tight. And you're constantly trying to keep that weight as high as possible. But you see how comfortable this feels. I know that there's not much weight in there, but this is how you want your rucksack to be, at least laying on your body. Now, all these straps you see hanging down here, all those would get rolled and stowed, rolled and taped up. That way, you know, you don't have just a bunch of shit just flying around. All that stuff would be stowed. You need to look professional as well, and you just don't want to be running around looking like that. So roll everything up, tape it up to where you need it to be, and then you can go from there. All right, so that's training wise. Doesn't really matter what's in there as long as you have the weight, and the weight is nice and high in your rucksack. So we're going to go through kind of field training wise. So the first thing you do that's different when it comes to going to the field or going camping or anything like that is you have no idea what the weather is going to do, and you want to prepare for the worst and plan for a very rainy day. And so first thing is you want to get these contractor bags. These are in Walmart, all sorts of places. Find you some contractor bags that are nice and thick. I'm going to open that thing up, roll it down just a little bit, and then you want to insulate the inside of your rucksack, meaning make your rucksack waterproof. You never know when you're going to be A, getting rained on, and B, having to do a water crossing to where you need to make sure that this rucksack and everything inside of it stays as dry as possible. You got radios, you got ammo, you got all these sensitive items that you need to make sure is secure and isn't going to get damaged from any sort of water, whether it's rain or a water crossing. So sometimes if you really know you're going to have a rainy day or you're going to be out in water a lot, you can double line this to where you can be for sure that you have everything dry on the inside of there. So waterproof your bag, and then it's very similar to the training wise. You want the weight, the majority of your weight, at the top of your rucksack. And me, the last thing that I'm really worried about is getting to my sleep system. That's the very last thing when it comes to priorities of work inside of a patrol base, or whether you're resting overnight somewhere. The last thing that you really need to gain access to is your sleeping bag. So I like to put that at the bottom. Obviously you guys know for my rucksack I have a separate pouch, but this is how I rocked it when I didn't have this fancy ruck. So putting it in there, if you have a bivy sack to keep all of your components together, do that. Cinch it up, make it as tight as possible and as small as possible to put in your ruck. Once I get my sleep system put inside, then I'm going to think about my food sources and extra clothing that I'm going to bring along the trip. So say that it's just a 2-day operation, or you're out in the field for 2 days. I'm going to plan on having 3 meals a day. So I've got my MREs, my meals ready to eat. I will put 3 at the bottom for day 2, and then I'll make 3 be very easily accessible. So for this one, we've got a 2-day op. I'm going to put 3 of them down towards the middle, towards the bottom, so that way on day 2 I can access those, but it's not as important right now to get those. Same thing, anything that I think that I'm going to need for day 2, I'm going to start packing that first because that's not really a priority right now. So extra boots, those are going in. And then this bag is going to be my day 2 apparel. So my extra uniform, another pair of socks, shirts, things like that, all for day 2. That's what I'm going to throw in next. And you want to make sure all of your bags, all of your Ziploc bags are, you got all the air out of them, so that way when you're putting them in here, you're saving as much room as possible. So I've got my meals for day 2, I've got my clothes for day 2, my boots, anything that I'm going to need for day 2, I got that in there. And then anything that I need for day 1, or like my toiletries, map markers, maps, anything like that, that's when I can start using these extra pouches that I have on the outside, because I know that those items are things that I'm going to need on day 1, or just things that I'm going to need to have like in and out. The last thing you want to do is be in your rucksack, you know, constantly pulling everything out just to find a marker or a pair of socks or something like that, something that you can easily put on the external, in one of the external pouches, so that way it's easily accessible. So I've got all my secondary items packed in there, and then now I'm going to just start figuring out certain things, like if all of your pouches on the outside are full from things that you need to get easily accessible, now you can start putting them into the main compartment. So day 1, I know I'm going to need some food, so I'm going to put my MREs for day 1 towards the top, and then I also have another trash bag. It doesn't have to be a contractor bag or a Ziploc bag, so that way when I'm done with my trash, I can put those loose MREs into either a trash bag or a Ziploc bag, so that way I know that those MREs are eaten. So you don't want to be out there trying to figure out what, especially when it gets dark, which MREs have food in them and which of them that you have already opened, because I open all of my MREs prior to even going out, and I field strip them to only really take the things that I know that I'm going to need. Everything else, especially when you're doing 5-10 day field ops, you can get rid of all that stuff, lighten your load a little bit. So having that extra bag to put your trash in, having an extra bag to put your wet clothes in, anything that you can do to stay as organized as possible, to where the last thing that you're having to do is pull everything out just to figure out what is what. Having a plan for everything from, when you need it, when you're done with it, having those extra bags to put things in, it will go a long way. So got my meals for day 1 up here at the top, and then this is where I can start putting in my ammo or equipment that I'm going to need. Say you're part of a machine gun team and you got to put the tripod or the spare barrel on top of here. Now you can go ahead and do that, and once you have everything that you want in your rucksack that you need to be waterproof, now you can go ahead and gooseneck this thing to where you're spinning it around, getting all the air out. And what I would usually do is just twist this thing as tight as possible. If you're going to go through a water crossing, you can definitely make a knot just to make everything more secure. But if you're just walking around, I'll just take that gooseneck and I'll just shove it down into the pack, so that way it's nice and sealed off. So let's just say that this is, ammo, so it's going to be heavier. I want to put that at the top. Push down as far as possible, and say that I have, a spare barrel or a tripod or something like this, or your sleep sack or your sleeping pad. This can go on top here. ahead and clip that in. That in. Make sure all your pouches are closed up with everything you need in them. So like batteries, wet weatherproof, top and bottoms, your poncho, your toiletries, your toothbrush, razor, toothpaste, deodorant, baby wipes on the outside is a big thing. Anything that you know that you could possibly need to get to quickly and on a daily basis, you want to have in these external pouches. Also, you're going to have water sources, so your Camelbak could go up here at the top, your Canteens, your 2 quarts and your 4 quarts on the sides here. And then once you get that all packed up, you just want to cinch this thing down as tight as possible. So that way you're not just swaying around with this rucksack on. All right, make sure everything's nice and even. Sit it down one more time. All right, if it's super heavy, all right, if it's super heavy, sometimes you may need to, like if this thing's pushing 80 to 100 pounds and you just can't throw it over your shoulder, go ahead and sit down, get into your straps, tighten it down, and then roll over into that, and then just go ahead and lean over. All right, now I'm ready to go. This is what it should look like. Nice, high, tight on your shoulders. And that way, you know, you can walk, you're gonna have your kit on, you're gonna have your rifle. You wanna have this thing as comfortable and as equal weight of distribution as possible. So, all right guys, that is how I pack my ruck for training and how I pack my ruck for going to the field. So, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments.